Hi everyone, it's Rebecca here at Rivercrest Cottage, and I have a little bit of wine with me today because I'm going to be moaning and whining about a book that I just finished. And as you can tell by the title, it's about Bridgerton. And let's get really serious about this, folks. Full disclaimers, though it's all over the title, there is major spoilers. We are talking about the nitty-gritty and why this stack of books will never be read by me. So if you haven't heard of Bridgerton, or you haven't watched Bridgerton, you don't know anything about Bridgerton, kudos to you, because I definitely couldn't get away from it. I had all my friends on Facebook talking about the series Bridgerton on Netflix and how everybody was just all enamored with it and how great it was, and it sounded and looked from the trailers that I had been watching as something really kind of pretty and eye candy, and we're all looking for that void of Downton Abbey. It's not Downton Abbey void filling, but I think that's those historical period dramas that the Brits do oh so well, and everything looking at it looks like it was an updated kind of classic. So in fear of missing out, the old FOMO hit me hard. And one night I decided that I was going to go out and see about the books, because I am a little bit of one of those that likes to, if there's a book, to read the book before actually seeing the show or the movie. And that led me down a rabbit hole because they're so pretty. At least these are. And this one. And this one. Okay, you get the idea. They are really pretty books, at least the first 5 that I could find. The next 3 in this series, I ordered in this type of style. It didn't come in that type of style. Instead, it came in the ones that I really hate. I mean, this has got multiple things. Number one, now we've got a real picture, which is kind of pretty, but a real picture. It's got everything about. It's called Bridgerton. It's not even, just the name. And of course, it's got the lovely Netflix show sticker thing that's permanent that you can't even take off. So these, while they had their potential, except for the Netflix thing on it, because of their styling, they don't match these. So not happy, because they're not even the same size. Oh, girl, they're not even the same size. Now, I didn't know it was going to come like that. I ordered them to match this series set the way it was done. So that came after the fact. So it was insult to injury. And let me tell you about the injury. So I promised you a discussion about Bridgerton. And as I alluded to in a previous discussion, the first 2/3 of this book, which one is it? The Duke and I actually really was enjoying. I thought there was some good modernization feel to it. It feels as if it's set a little bit more in the modern times, but back in Regency. So it's a Regency romance, and it wasn't doing such a typical job of the stereotypical, he's the lord of the manor, she's the scullery maid, and somehow come to find out she really was a princess in a previous life. Or she should have been because of how she looks. I always love how healthy they are and how beautiful they are, but yet we know the life of a scullery maid and where she would have come from originally, and the poverty that a lot of times the women in those type of books come from or subjected to. They wouldn't be looking that great. But that's beside the point. This one doesn't follow that. Instead, we're just with the upper classes the whole time. The 2 main characters basically strike a deal to help one another out. One wants to get married and one doesn't. So let's just talk about who wants what. Daphne, the main female character, wants to get married desperately and have lots of kids, and to fulfill her role as a woman of the Regency period of the aristocracy is expected to fulfill popping out kids and running a large manor, okay? She wants this because she has a portrayal from her mother, who has 8 kids, all of which it survived with very minimal trouble, it sounds like. And they're all clever, they're all brilliant, and they're all beautiful. because that always happens. Anyway, she's a widow, but she loves her children. She has an amazing relationship with them, being quite frank with them on some things and jostling back and forth. Very modern feel to this family, not what you would expect from a Regency family at all. They even have weekly dinners where everybody's included, including the small little ones. And it's described as being loud and ruckus and everybody talking over one another. So I didn't mind those type of things because, again, it's historical fiction, and we like to romantically think somebody has family lives like that back in those days, but that's not really what Regency high society, and these are the upper echelons. Now, if you watch the Netflix series, you get introduced to extra characters like, oh, I don't know, they're getting introduced to the queen, they go have tea with the queen, that type of high echelon. That's not in the book, but it's good fodder for Netflix. And so that's her dream. We'll flip to the other side and we meet the Duke. Now the Duke, who's the most eligible bachelor, blah, 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 his dad has died. He doesn't want to get married. He doesn't want to have children. And the reason for that is his background. He comes from a very, very, very disturbing childhood, to be honest with you, despite being, a Duke and being born into a dukedom. And this is something I think is very good about Bridgerton, is that they highlight a challenge that he faced, which he stutters. And for the most part, as being a speech language pathologist, I think they handle that pretty well. The introduction and how his father reacted to him is heartbreaking, crushing, and so infuriating. And from a modern standpoint, so wrong on many levels. But it is probably exactly what that child would have been met with in that time. And it's a shame. He thought he was ignorant. He couldn't speak. He doesn't speak until he's 4. When he does, he has a stutter. His father basically disowns him, thinking he's an imbecile, basically calling him that. And at one point, he says, "You're dead to me." So, very, very rough kind of, and his mother died in childbirth, giving birth to him. Who then was, if you think about it, her whole role in there, and it says over and over, she's had quite a few children and they've either been born dead, miscarried, or they die shortly thereafter. So here we finally have this desire for an heir. This is always good fodder, especially in English aristocracy, to have that male heir. Finally has him, and then he's dismissed, and really and truly the boy doesn't see him again until he's 7 or 8. And he tries really hard. It still doesn't go quite as well. The child is making progress. And this is one of the things I liked about it. You do have a main character with something as character developing and affecting as a stutter. And I think she created a character that is exactly what probably would have developed during that time. And I appreciate that. She does a pretty good job throughout the book referring to him managing his stutter, because, again, just to give you a little bit of an input, stutters, you don't necessarily overcome it. You don't cure it. You learn to manage it in ways, and it's not easy. It is incredibly difficult and challenging, and I often equate it to asking you to talk in a perfect, and this is if you aren't Scottish, so if you're Scottish, you cheat, but speaking in a perfect Scottish brogue voice with all the right accents and all the proper words and all the correct vocabulary used correctly, vernacular, all of that, 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're being judged by Scots at all times. That's what we're asking people who stutter when we ask them to manage, so that we don't have to work as hard or to make us feel better. And it's exhausting. And so what you have is you have a Duke who develops this ability to, number one, he's sought after just because of his title and his connections, his family connections. He's forced into society for that. But how he reacts in society is he speaks minimally. So instead of standing around just barking off and just going on and on and on and droning on about nothing, he will answer very shortly. He seems very aloof because of that. And people are drawn to him because of his title, but also this aloofness as well. Men want to be him. Women want to be with him. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, sorry. So these two strike a deal, because if he starts acting like he likes her, all those mamas that are throwing their daughters at him, they're going to stop because he's interested in this one woman. And they'll he won't be getting daughters thrown at him every time he goes anywhere in public and in society. It also makes her look very marketable. It makes her look very desirable. I shouldn't say marketable. That's awful. Well, that is basically a meat market. But anyways, very desirable. And maybe some of those guys that have known her for a while and know her brothers, because that's kind of it. She's kind of everybody's friend, but nobody's girlfriend. They all love her and adore her. But there's not that chemistry that she's the it girl, which is another thing that is very funny because in Netflix, they make her an it girl from the very beginning because the queen decides she's interesting, when is a complete opposite in the book. It's not saying she's ugly or any of that. It's just they're very familiar with her because she has 3 dashing, gorgeous, remember, everybody's beautiful in the family, 3 dashing, beautiful brothers that are powerful, and they were the most eligible until Mr. Dookie comes back. And, so they're the most eligible in society at the time. And so you just got this dynamic that you don't date your friend's you don't date your friend's girlfriend. That's probably a good theory too, but you don't date your friend's sister. And so in this case, they decide that this way it'll make her look more attractive to other guys to think of her as marrying material. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm just throwing the English language out the door on this. Okay, it's all fine and dandy. It has some great, interesting dialogue. It's fun. I wouldn't even say it's banter, but yet it is. Some funny situations she gets herself into with him, and then ultimately something happens very dramatically, because it has to be drama, very dramatically, and they have to get married. No, she's not pregnant, but her reputation would be in tatters if they didn't. So they get married. She doesn't know a whole lot about, it. And mom does a horrible job. It's actually kind of a very uncomfortable scene. I feel for the mother, especially back in those times. But at the same time, it's weird because it kind of doesn't go with the whole family vibe. I would have thought that mom would have just kind of splurted it out because this is her duty, her job, what she always has wanted. So she doesn't know a whole lot. But one thing I have to say, and this is where the tea gets spilled. The Duke has told her over and over he doesn't want to get married and he can't have children. He's been blatant about this. And of course, she's gone the complete other way. But because of how they have to get married, she has to kind of agree because he brings it up yet again. I mean, it is all through the book. We know. And he really doesn't want to have children out of revenge to his father. He doesn't want to carry on this dukedom that was so important to this man. This is like his last ability to have revenge against his father. Well, she says okay, but then they have their night. And more nights and more nights. And it's pretty steamy. Not anything like Netflix. Holy cow. Really? Sorry, guys. I don't know that I could sit even with my girlfriends and watch this and not be somewhat uncomfortable and embarrassed. But anyways, that's a whole nother thing. Because when they break that seal, woohoo! It's broken. Anyway, she finally finds out. And it dawns on her when she finally finds this out through some weird ways. That it isn't that he can't. It's that he won't have children. He is choosing not to have children. She doesn't know anything about this guy's background. They know nothing about one another other than she's been pretty straightforward. I want kids, I want kids. And he's like, we ain't having kids. I can't have kids. Don't marry me if you can't accept this. I can't have kids. Well, when she finds out what the deed is, it has to be done to have children, she notices that he's rolling away from her right before it. And it clicks in her head. She realizes, oh, he could have kids. And then she grabs hold of it. They do it in the Netflix thing as well. She grabs hold of this phrase of, it isn't that you can't have children. It's that you won't have children. You don't want children. And you lied to me. In his mind, he can't have children because he doesn't want to continue on and give that man that was so horrible to him ultimately what he wanted, which is heirs. Okay? That word can't and will and won't, it doesn't matter. If he doesn't feel he can, then it's a can't. And this is where I lose it. She then takes advantage of him after they've had an argument and he's gotten drunk. She hops on top to get herself pregnant. Now, people, this is the problem. This is where I lost it. I was frustrated anyways whenever she gets mad about this whole can't and will not and blah, 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 crud. I was mad at that. Because they really don't know anything about each other, and she hasn't taken any time to really get to know him. Okay? But when you take advantage of somebody, in this case in a drunken stupor, to get pregnant, how is this acceptable? How is this book anywhere other than people up in arms? Because people, let's be frank about it. If you flipped this over and it was a guy who did that to a girl, there would be no Bridgerton on Netflix. There would be no 8 books. There wouldn't be. The deception is huge. The callousness that's shown by this character, the frivolousness, and even then the author continues on and this book kind of finishes with 2 things happening. Number one, they split up after that. She goes back to London. He is just beside himself because he knows what she's done. And she writes him a letter and basically indicates that it worked. Her plan worked. And he out of his heart of, this kid's now going to need a father. I can't do to the kid what I've done, that my father did to me. He's going to come back and he's going to be the man that he needs to be. Netflix doesn't portray it that way. And that's why I watched the series as long as I did, because I had to get to 6 episodes, I think, to see how they handled this storyline, and they change it. They change it. I'm so angry because number one, they change it in the Netflix thing and it kind of looks like he's a cat almost. And it's not. I mean, the book at least portrays her as this really devious, but I know it's done through innocence and she thinks she knows better. And that's the other part of the book that happens. When they do come back together, she tells him, come to find out, it didn't take. She isn't pregnant. But she knows what's better for him. She knows that he needs to be a father. She still really doesn't know the whole story. The reasoning, and she's not asking him why. She just saw him playing with her little brothers and sisters and says, you need to be a dad. You're fantastic. You're amazing with kids. Could you imagine if a man said, look, I know, we got you pregnant. But you need to be a mother. That's what you're for. That's what you were designed. I've seen you with your younger siblings and you are so destined to be a mother and I know better than you. If that was the storyline, we wouldn't be reading these books. And it frustrates me because people, I don't care. It's wrong. And simply doing what may and was done to women for many, many years, but then turning around and having a woman be the one who's perpetuating that and doing that, that's not what being a free, intelligent, strong woman is. You don't do what people did to you that was so awful. You rise above it and you do the right thing. So I don't understand. Because I didn't get a feeling this book that she would be quite that right. I thought there would be a longer argument, and I thought, yeah, here we go. We finally have the breakup, because most of the book they're together, and it's pretty good, pretty fun, But there's always got to be that moment in the book whenever you don't know if they're going to stay together, where they could have separated for a while, and then she comes to him and says, I want to know more. I really want to understand. And he's so in love with her that he can't stay away from her. I mean, there's a million ways they could have brought the two of them back together. But her hopping on top and trying to get pregnant because that's what she wants. And she thinks he's supposed to be this great dad when he's went over and over and told her that he can't. I just find it so deceitful. And she does pull a couple other things I think are a little bit naive. But then again, I think about she's going to be in this world where she was meant to be naive. And it does show that injustice. So that's about the last third of the book. That is the big, huge blow. I watched the Netflix series. Like I said, they've handled it differently. Him in the Netflix series asking her to describe her desires or her dreams and things like that. That's not in the book. So I'm really disappointed. I'm so aggravated with it, and with the fact that it's been completely blown over, because I don't know anybody else has talked about this except for one, and that is Jess Reads, I think. I will put her name of her channel across the screen here and down below. She did a reading vlog where she was reading it, and she kind of was going through the same thing I was, having a good time, and then all of a sudden, and she never does what I do, which she doesn't really spill what happens. But you can tell her that she's uncomfortable with it, and if you know the story, you'll understand. And the irony with that is that video came out on my saying that she had put it out on my YouTube channel as far as my subscription the day after I ordered this friggin' set in this book. And I saw her title, because it's pretty, I think she gave it a 1 star for Bridgerton, and she says that in the title, and I was like, oh no. So, but instead, I made myself go through it. I'm trying to save you from doing that. I have no idea about the rest of the series. The storylines I'm seeing in Netflix looks like it's a lot of the same lying, deceitful kind of stuff, which I guess, if you're into that, that's fine. But this kind of deceit, I just found irreprehensible and frustrating, because I just don't think that it really was appropriate or should have even been a consideration to go that way with the storyline. And I can't believe that more people haven't said something about this. And I can't believe that Netflix went, oh, we have a little problem with your whole ending and how this whole thing, I mean, it is the whole book, people, and how they change it for Netflix. It's like, wow. So millions of people are going to go out and buy this, like me, and read this stuff and go, what the heck? And every time I see somebody on any of my social media things and groups and stuff talking about it, I want so bad to just say, don't read it, and put the spoiler out there, but I know I can't. So I have a feeling I'm going to be in the minority of this one. I know that I do a tendency to rant about books I really don't like. But it's because I don't always see those reviews out there. And the thing is, this is my personal problem with this book. But if that sounds not right to you as well, or it doesn't sit well with you, then I've saved you from reading the book, because you're going to hit it. It's going to hit you right in between the eyes. And I can't unsee it or unread it. So for what it's worth, that's my opinion. Bridgerton is a no-go. All of those books will end up in my little library down here, my little free library. I won't even bother, and what a waste of money. What a waste of money. Lesson learned. I got to stop getting that feeling, and it just makes me, put salt in the wound. You've changed it halfway through, and these are not the books I ordered. Those are not the covers you showed that I clicked buy for. So, anyway. You know what? I feel better now. I'm going to go drink my wine and start reading my next book for March, which I hope is much, much better. So, again, thanks for sticking with me. And you know what? Keep turning those pages, just not on Bridgerton. Bye.